There's a certain kind of person who apologizes when someone else bumps into them. They say sorry for asking a question they were perfectly entitled to ask. They feel a quiet pull of guilt when they haven't responded to a message fast enough, even if it's been 3 hours. They say sorry before they share an opinion, sorry after they share it, and sorry again if the other person seems even slightly quiet afterward. If you're watching this, you probably already know which person I'm describing. And here's the thing most people get wrong about them. They get called too sensitive, too anxious, too eager to please. The word doormat gets used. The advice they receive is always some version of just stop apologizing so much, as if the behavior is a bad habit they picked up, like biting their nails, as if they haven't already tried. What's actually happening is something much older, much more layered, and far more intelligent than it looks. What we're talking about is over-apologizing, and it is one of the most misread psychological patterns there is. On the surface, it looks like low confidence. People assume it means someone doesn't value themselves, but that interpretation barely scratches the surface. Because when you look at what's actually happening inside the nervous system of someone who apologizes constantly, you find something that has nothing to do with weakness and everything to do with an incredibly finely tuned threat detection system. Research in interpersonal neurobiology has shown that humans are wired to monitor social connection the way early humans monitored physical danger. Rejection, conflict, disapproval, these register in the brain in regions that overlap with physical pain. For some people, that system is simply more sensitive than others. Not broken, sensitive. There is a difference. And here is where it becomes personal. The brain doesn't just respond to what's happening right now, it responds to patterns it learned a long time ago. For many people who over-apologize, the behavior started as a response to an environment where conflict felt genuinely unsafe, not metaphorically unsafe, actually unsafe, in the way that a child understands safety. Maybe there was a parent whose mood changed without warning, and learning to read the room and preemptively smooth things over was the smartest thing a child could do. Maybe expressing a need or a feeling led to punishment, guilt, or withdrawal of love. So the apology became a way to shrink before anyone had the chance to push back. Maybe the environment was more subtle than that, a household where keeping the peace was the highest value, where being easy and agreeable meant being loved, and where taking up space in any emotional way felt like a risk. The apology in those circumstances was not weakness, it was a solution. A learned strategy that worked. It reduced conflict, it maintained connection, it kept things calm. The nervous system stored that and filed it under "this is how we survive." The difficulty is that the strategy gets carried forward into adulthood, into relationships and workplaces and friendships that aren't the original environment at all. The body doesn't always know the difference, it just knows the pattern that kept things safe once, and it keeps reaching for it. It's worth saying clearly, this is not better or worse than other ways of moving through the world. Some people move through conflict more directly. Some people have nervous systems that respond to disapproval with very little alarm at all. Neither of those responses is more evolved or more correct. They're adaptations, products of different environments, different wiring, different histories. The person who over-apologizes isn't failing at something the rest of the world has figured out. Now, here's the part that most conversations about this never reach. There is something genuinely valuable living inside this pattern. People who have spent years tuning in to the emotional undercurrents of a room tend to be extraordinarily perceptive. They notice when something shifts, they pick up on what isn't being said, they carry a deep instinct for what other people need because they spent years making sure they knew. That kind of attunement is rare. It doesn't disappear just because the original reason for developing it is gone. The cost, though, is real. When every apology is a preemptive attempt to manage someone else's reaction, it becomes exhausting. There's a constant low-grade monitoring, scanning, adjusting, preparing, and over time, it can create a strange kind of invisibility. You become very good at making other people comfortable, and quietly, almost without noticing, your own comfort starts to feel like a secondary concern. Not a flaw, a pattern, and patterns can be understood.
If any of this has reached something you recognize in yourself, what it means is not that something went wrong with you. It means you adapted, intelligently and completely, to something that was real. The nervous system that learned to apologize first was trying to protect you. That's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to know. And knowing it changes the relationship with it. Not overnight, not because of a decision, but slowly, the way real things change, through recognition, through being seen. There's another pattern that tends to live alongside this one, quieter, even harder to spot. If you're curious about the way the research says that people like you tend to navigate your own emotional needs and why it almost always goes unseen, that's worth sitting with next.